Hello, everybody. Welcome to the live stream. I'm streaming this in both LinkedIn and YouTube. Hi to all of you there. So we'll start with one of the controversial things, right? So if you treat every single employee in your team exactly the same, you are failing as a manager. Sorry, just hit the record button, right? So I'll repeat it, right? If you treat every single employee in your team exactly the same, you are failing as a manager. So welcome everyone. I'm Rakesh Ravindran. And today we are tackling the biggest taboo in leadership. And I call this the inner circle. So we are taught that favoritism is a sin. We are told to be fair and equal to everyone, which is all right, which is absolutely important, and I'm not disputing that at all. However, there is a thin line, right? Today, I'm going to make a claim. It's a controversial one to be, and it is basically about for you to be a high performing leader, you must have an inner circle. And by inner circle, I mean close group. So if you have in a team of about 10 people, you should have a select few out of those 10 people who are closer to you about pretty much everything you do professionally in that team. Now, before you get angry, right, let me tell you this. I used to hate this idea too. I used to think an inner circle was just a code for teacher's pet, or synonymously, it could be called favoritism, right? But a conversation 15 years ago changed my entire perspective on this topic. So let me narrate that story for you. Let me take you back about 15 years. I was a first line manager, a team leader at a large organization. We had invited a guest speaker, and a lot of you might know him, Dr. S.R. Sridhar Murthy. Right now, Dr. S.R. Sridhar Murthy, I'm sorry, the founder, president of NSB Bangalore. Right, this man is a legend, and he's got like 25 years of experience in strategy and entrepreneurship. So he was invited over to our office to give a lecture on leadership, and halfway through, he dropped a bomb. He said, I have 30 people reporting to me, but I have an inner circle of about 5 people. And I remember, and he said that, and he discusses all the major decisions that he takes with them first, the inner circle, the 5 people first, before he lets the other 25 people know about it. And I sat there thinking, isn't that wrong? That is unfair. That just doesn't sound right. This sounds like bad leadership. So after the speech, we broke for lunch, and it was a standing buffet lunch, right? Very casual, people socializing with plates in their hands and so on. And I saw Dr. Sridhar standing there, and I decided to corner him, right? I approached him, and I wanted to speak to him about this. I walked up to him and I said, Dr. Sridhar, I have a question. When you say you have an inner circle, isn't that just favoritism, right? It sounds like favoritism. Doesn't the rest of your team feel like you are biased against them? And I remember his face even now, right? He looked at me, smiled, and said in a gentle way, he said, well, yes, they could think that, but I make sure they don't, because I don't do it behind their backs. Everyone knows who is in the inner circle, and they know exactly why. And then he flipped the script on me right there. He said, or he asked me a question that literally floored me. He said, Rakesh, do you do performance evaluation at the end of the year? I said, yes, of course I do. And he said, and do you give top rating to everyone, or just the top 10, 20%, whatever happens in your organization? I said, well, it's just for the top performers. They get the top rating. And he looked at me in the eye and he said, so you give some people more money and higher rating than others based on their performance, isn't it? I said, yes. So isn't that favoritism? He said, you're giving someone more and the rest a little less. Why is it okay to differentiate money once a year, but wrong to differentiate time and trust during the rest of the year? I didn't have an answer. He saw that I was thinking, and he said one last thing before he moved on to the next person. He had a bunch of people waiting to talk to him, and I said, every smart leader has an inner circle, whether they admit it or not. It's not about bias, it's about meritocracy. Sorry. And I want you to go back and introspect, he said. And he said, look at your own team. Tell me if you truly treat everyone exactly the same. And he walked away. He went to, speak to the rest of the people that were waiting in line. And I went back to my desk. I remember this, and I did that self assessment. I sort of started introspecting, and I realized he was right. I did have an inner circle. Well, I didn't name it that exactly as it is, but I realized that when there was a crisis in my team, an emergency situation that needed me to solve a problem very quickly, within 30 minutes, there was one specific person I called out to. I didn't call the whole team. I didn't ask anybody else. When I had a high stake project that needs to be delivered, very senior leaders having an eye on that project, the outcome of that project, and it cannot afford to fail, there was another specific person who was an expert in project delivery. I leaned on that person for that. So I had specific people. And the funniest part that I realized during that introspection is that the team knew it too. If my team members had a crisis, very similar to if I had come across a crisis, they didn't email the whole group. They went to the same crisis person. And we had unknowingly established a hierarchy based on strengths that individuals had in my team. I wasn't playing favorites. I was playing to my team's strengths. That was my inner circle. Now, I'm going to pivot a little bit, and I'll tell you that whatever I'm saying right now is not something that I'm pulling out of thin air, right? There is studies being done. Once I started getting intrigued about this topic, I actually did some research, and of course I did some to get live on this. There is a study that was done, and it is called LMX in short. It stands for Leader Member Exchange Theory, right? And the core concept here is called Leader Member Exchange Theory. It's basically, it was pioneered by a researcher called Green and Albane. Yeah, LMX theory proves a simple reality. As a leader, you have limited time and limited resources. So let me pull up the slide for you. There you go. So the theory says that as a leader, you have limited time and limited resources available to you, right? And because of those limitations, it is practically impossible for you to have the exact same high quality relationship with every single individual reporting to you. Research shows that leaders naturally form two groups. Yeah? There was an in group, which is your inner circle. I call it inner circle. And for this group, relationships are based on high trust. You give them more autonomy, inside information, and critical responsibility of your team. And then there is the out group, right? These relations are transactional. Let me get back on this. These relationships are transactional. They do the job that is defined in their job description. They are paid and they go home, right? And that's basically it. And here is the kicker. Studies consistently show that teams with strong inner circle, which is in the technical term during the study, they say high LMX relationships, have higher overall performance, better organizational citizenship, the better belongingness, which also means they were more than willing to help each other out. And the most interesting part was that they had lower turnover rates, which is attrition, lower attrition, right? And differentiating is not necessarily a bad thing. That was another important outcome of that study. It's actually a necessary management requirement, right? So think about it, right? Let me bring the slide back up. So you have high performers and low performers, and if you were to divide your quality time with each of them equally, that doesn't result in the best outcome. What happens is that you end up a burnt out high performers and a very comfortable low performers, right? Which is not your ideal situation. Yeah. Now, going back, so we spoke about the in group and the out group, right? So when in your in group you have high trust, high autonomy, strategic impact, you give them critical tasks to do, and in your out group you basically have transactional um, relationship. It's more about do your job, thank you very much, right? So that's basically it, and you expect that all of them will just do their jobs diligently because that's basically what the requirement says. Yeah, sorry, I went a slide ahead. So yeah, so think about it, right? So this is basically where everything turns around for a team. If you were to equally divide your time between your in group and the out group, it very likely the outcome is that you don't get the best out of the team. The team that is high performing will feel like, well, I'm doing a lot of these things, I'm taking bigger responsibilities, I'm doing more, and these are your high performers, right? And I'm not getting enough time from my manager. I wish I could improve. I wish I could scale. I want to grow. I want bigger responsibilities, but I'm not getting that equal amount of time invested in my effort. At the same time, your low performers, you're spending more time there because you want to scale them up, help them improve. And I'm not in any point, any form or shape saying that you should ignore your low performers. You actually should be investing some time, but that time should be carefully dedicated to help them realize where they need to improve, and that's about it. You pull back because everybody working in your team are adults, right? They know what their responsibility is, and part of your job is to make sure that you give them that clarity. So when you have that clarity, you will see that the team performs well, right? So now here's what I will bring up, right? Think about it. Now, we already do this once a year, right? When you do your performance reviews, what is performance review? Let's think about it. It's basically stack ranking, right? If you have 10 people, you stack rank them from the rank 1 to 10, and that's your job. You take the top 10%, depending on what your organization guidelines are on what your bell curve should be. So it's basically stack ranking. You give the best rating and the highest bonuses to your top 10, 20% or 15%, whatever is given as your guideline. So the question is, why is it socially acceptable to differentiate people with money once a year, but somehow it's a taboo to differentiate them with your time? Your time is valuable. Your trust is valuable. So why is it that it is you have to it is a taboo when you differentiate them throughout the year, every day of that year, right? The myth is that the managers have favorites because they personally like somebody. And in my opinion, that's complete nonsense. A manager gains, and if you are a manager, you will know that a manager gains nothing from pure favoritism. Now, for example, if I pick a drinking buddy of mine in my inner circle and they can't deliver a critical project, who is going to get blamed? I am the one who fails as a manager, right? So we need to separate the two words. Differentiation is based on competence and delivery. Favoritism, on the other hand, is based on personal preferences, right? And we are talking about differentiation. It is bad when you have favoritism in that sense, but differentiation is good. And I learned this lesson the hard way a few years back when I was leading a critical operations turnaround, right? I wanted to turn around a poorly performing team, and we were in crisis mode. And there was this one incident where one of our customers, very big customer, very valuable customer, had lost some money because of some error. And we triggered this thing called TRT, or technical recovery team meeting, right? The pressure was immense. Things were breaking faster than we could fix. I quickly realized that I couldn't be everywhere at once. It's impossible for me as a leader. If I tried to manage all 20 people on the floor equally, the ship was going to sink. I needed eyes and ears on the ground, right? And I needed the inner circle. So I just basically identified 3 people in my team. Now, listen carefully, right? They weren't the loudest people. They weren't necessarily the ones who grabbed coffee with me. In fact, they didn't. But they were the ones who consistently delivered against their expectations. When something is broke, they owned it and fixed it before I even asked them to. So I pulled them closer. I gave them the critical information before the rest of the team knew it. I gave them the authority to make on the spot decisions without checking with me. Effectively, they became my inner circle. Now, did the rest of the team notice? Of course they did. They did some people whisper about favoritism by the watercolor discussion? Yes, I'm sure they did. But here is how I killed that noise. I didn't hide it. I openly said in my team huddles and team meetings, I explicitly mentioned the reason person A is leading this critical client migration is because she delivered the last 3 projects with 0 errors. And that is the standard I want to keep. If you want to lead the next migration, that is the standard you need to hit. Suddenly, the inner circle wasn't a secret club on who I lied. It was a transparent standard of excellence. It gave the rest of the team a tangible target to aim for. The inner circle didn't divide my team, it drove my team. So, the question is, how do you build this without creating a toxic culture? It's a fine line. I agree with you. Here is a framework of do's and don'ts, right? Of managing your inner circle. So, let me bring up the slide. Give me a second. So, we spoke about favoritism and differentiation. So, what to avoid? So, let's talk about the don'ts, right? These are the ones that destroy your trust, destroy the trust in the entire team. First thing is, don't create a secret society. Never be sneaky about who you trust with what. Secrets breed paranoia. Don't give perks just for the membership in the inner club, right? Do not give special bonuses or time off just because they are close to you or they are good performers either, right? Rewards must always be tied to output and not proximity. Be very clear about that. Set clear standards on what qualifies for a reward, what are the rules of taking a day off, and be fair across the group. So now that's where fairness comes in. And then don't ignore feedback from the team, right? If your out group tells you that the inner circle member is being arrogant or toxic or they are treating the rest of the group indifferently, you must listen and you should honestly investigate. Being in the inner circle is not immunity for criticism, right? It does not mean that they get away with everything and anything. Making sure that the inner circle treats the rest of your team fairly is super critical. It's very, very important. Yeah. Now let's go to the do's. These are the things that you should be doing. This is how you build high performance teams. And the do's actually validate the why. Why are you doing this, right? You must explicitly link their status to their consistent delivery, right? Make the criteria clear to everyone. What makes or breaks, or what qualifies, don't call it the inner circle, what qualifies to be a high performer. That should be very, very clear and very evident in every conversation you have. It might be team meeting, it could be a one-on-one conversation, it doesn't matter, but that needs to be clearly defined, right? Now, do make it permeable inner circle, right? The inner circle must not be a revolving door, not a locked room. It shouldn't be like I'll only have three people in it. So if there is the fourth one that comes in, the worst out of the three just gets kicked out. It shouldn't be like that. New people must be able to enter if their performance spikes, if their performance improves, and current members must know they can fall out if they became complacent, right? Now, let's be careful about everything I'm saying here. I'm not saying that this should be your operating rhythm. This should not be the norm. The inner circle is not the norm. Inner circle gets invoked in situations, right? It is not something that you keep constant every single time. It could change. Your inner circle could change depending on the circumstances. So, for example, if it is a social event that you want to organize for your team, your inner circle for that could be a little different. If it is a high stakes project, that could be a different inner circle, right? If it is critical firefighting that needs to be done, you could have a different inner circle. Now, another very important thing that you need to do is to create backups. Never allow yourself to be held hostage by your inner circle because they are the only ones who know how things work. You must constantly train the out group to become the next inner circle. So, what you need to do is also to sponsor their career. This is crucial. The tax you pay for relying on them so heavily is that you must fight for their promotion. When I say fight for their promotion, their in this case is your inner circle, because they are your top performers, which means you should be open to letting them go and explore career opportunities inside your organization or even outside of the organization. You should support them. And in fact, I would go ahead and say that your inner circle, when you give those opportunities, it should be in the mind of explicitly for them to hone their skills, improve on their exposure to different environment, right? So that they get better and they are much more qualified. They're ready for promotions. And even if it means they leave your team, right? You're building leaders, not hoarding talents. That's a very critical aspect of having an inner circle. So now, let me quickly check. Okay. So now let me bring just the video back up, right? When you do this right, you create competition, and many managers are scared of that, right? The competition. But there is a difference between a cutthroat competition and a healthy competition. Unhealthy competition is a zero-sum game, right? It is when everybody is bound to lose. That's a zero-sum competition. Yeah. Now, for me, to win, you have to lose kind of attitude. That is unhealthy competition. That is just simply toxic, right? And what we really want is a cooperative competition or a healthy competition. This means that we are all competing to raise the standard of the entire team. You have to foster an abundance mindset. You have to foster a growth mindset. Make it clear to your team. There is room for everyone in this inner circle if you meet the standard, right? We are not fighting for the one slice of the pie. We are trying to make the pie bigger together. Now that is super critical, right? So, to summarize a lot of these things, right? Equality is a concept for human rights, right? It is not a strategy for high performance management. This is not black and white. There is a gray area to it as well. So let me put that disclaimer across. You have to execute this really smartly to not fail at it, right? Your job as a leader is to not treat everyone equally. And introspect, if you're a leader, think about it. Can you? Is it even possible to do that? The idea is to treat everyone equitably based on their contribution, their potential, and most importantly, their performance. Don't be afraid to have an inner circle. Be afraid of having one based on the wrong criteria. That is important. So I'll repeat this again. This is really critical, right? Don't be afraid to have an inner circle, but be afraid of having an inner circle based on the wrong criteria. Use it to drive excellence, not play favorites. Yeah. So that is what I'm sharing on the slide now. So we have a few minutes left. I see some great comments coming in on LinkedIn. Let's take a question or two. Let's see. Okay, those are comments. I don't see any questions. Folks, if you have questions, feel free to ask away. I'll be happy to respond to the questions as much as I can, right? And before I leave, I wanted to bring up about the community that I am building right now, right? So I want to speak to all the mid-level managers right here, right? When all the mid-level managers watching this live stream, if you are struggling to balance your team, or if you know you need to make these bold moves, but you're scared because you want to be liked by everyone, I get it, right? It's uncomfortable, but comfort is the enemy of growth. I mentor managers on exactly how to build this kind of an authority, visibility, and high performance culture. A lot of it has to do with mindset. So when you are talking to me, I'm not just addressing your surface level problems, I'm actually helping you get to the depth of what's causing those doubts, and we'll address it together, right? If you're ready to stop being just a fair manager, right? You have to be fair, right? But if you just don't want to limit yourself to just that tag and want to start being an effective leader, reach out to me. Let's have a conversation about how we can elevate your leadership ethos. Now, let me also tell you about the community that I'm building. I am building a community, Ethos Leadership Collective. It's really a community. It's not really a company or an organization. It's a community for leaders who want to build authentic leadership, right? So we are a community of people who hold each other accountable. We want to sort of come together, learn from each other, and scale in our own organization, grow as leaders. And this leadership is not just about in your organization, it is about being leader in every aspect, including your society, right? So I'll encourage you all to reach out. I'll be giving you links in the description of this video later on to set up one-to-ones with me. It's free, and there's no limit to the time we can have conversation until you find some strategy coming out of the conversation, and I'd like to see you in that. Go check out my website, www.ethosleadershipcollective.com. There is also a masterclass that I run every week, and feel free to register yourself. It's free as well. It is about 2.5 hours long masterclass, but you will take away a lot of insights from that masterclass, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all there. And go build your inner circle the right way. And if you have any more questions, I will be reading the comments and I'll get back to you. Yeah. So thank you all very much. Signing off for now. I will see you in the future episodes. Thank you.